Hello and welcome to Global Sanctuary for Elephants podcast, Global Rumblings. Global Sanctuary for Elephants, or GSE for short, is a non-profit organization with a mission to create vast safe spaces for captive elephants where they are able to heal physically and emotionally, often from very traumatic pasts. I'm your host, Nadia Mari, and I'll be taking you to the lush jungle of the Mato Grosso region in central Brazil, home of GSE's initial project, Elephant Sanctuary Brazil. Currently home to 6 female Asian elephants, lovingly referred to as the girls. Hello everybody, thank you again for joining us this week for a new episode of Global Rumblings. We will be talking more about Ramba's first days at the sanctuary. She is finally home, so let's head over to Brazil to say hi to Kat and Scott. Hi you two.
Hello Nadia, how are you?
Nadia. Just for those who listen, I laugh at everything. I apologize. I realize I think I laugh every time I say hello. Hi.
Yeah, I think we've all had a very long day. Well, I've had a long day. It's on the evening here, and you've still got a long day ahead of you. It is still February, and it is still the month of love when this podcast comes out. Valentine's Day will be over, but we want to share some love with you all, and so we are giving away 3 of our wonderful Sip, Rumble, Repeat podcast mugs, and this time it is very easy. The first 3 emails to send us mugs of love to podcast@globalelephants.org will get a Sip, Rumble, Repeat podcast mug. And Caroline, if you are listening to this, please send us your postal address because you actually won one of the podcast mugs we were giving away last year, but we need your postal address to send it to you. Okay, yes, let's pick up October 2019. Ramba is finally home. How did the first hours, days unfold? Which was the first elephant that she met up with?
I think before we're going down that road, Nadia, I would like to suggest that at some point we should do an after hours podcast because we're crazy enough as it is and our minds are off. Like, let's do a podcast with wine instead of coffee and see how this goes. Because this is one of those days that I think that we definitely...
There isn't enough coffee in the world.
There's not enough coffee in the world, no.
Yeah.
And that takes us back to the early days of Maya. And we had a little jingle that was all about there's not enough coffee, Miss Maya, there's not enough coffee in the world.
Yeah, we were a little tired then too. I guess it's a running theme.
Yeah.
So feel free to mail us tons of coffee.
We can drink wine out of the podcast mug as well. So yeah, there are some days where, I don't know, my brain, I think, is just, the water's just evaporated it's just like a dry walnut. So let's hope that we pull through this podcast. And okay, I digress. So let's head back to October
Let's go back to
19.
Ramba.
Let's go back to Ramba, exactly.
So again, just touching base on Ramba before, and how drastically she changed was just astounding considering how worried we were, when she left and even before she left, and how remarkable she was those first couple of days. That first night, slept a lot. She looked radiant the next morning. And immediately we opened up for her to explore her new area. And true to Ramba form, she did not waste any time. She just said, okay, let's go explore our new world. And if no gates had been closed, who knows where she would have gone. Because
looking back now, just for those who haven't been along on a rescue, we do a lot of lives from the road when we can. Internet, clearly an issue in the middle of nowhere, Brazil. But we do like for people to actually see what's going on. And Ramba not eating well and stuff was all stuff that was talked about on our live Facebook, usually, sometimes Instagram. We are transparent about everything, probably to a fault sometimes. So it wasn't a surprise that she wasn't doing well. Everybody that was tuning in knew that. And I don't even remember why I started talking about that specifically.
More coffee.
Oh my gosh.
This is the day wherein we all need more coffee.
Because it was just the way that the next day, the magic of Sanctuary, and somehow she totally transformed. You were still worried, but not that worried about her anymore, maybe, that she was so different than she was presenting herself on the journey.
I think that's part of the magic of sharing it with everybody so they see all the elements. If you just talk about it after, hey, she wasn't doing well. But in that moment, it's powerful to see what goes on in those journeys. And it also makes the next step all the more beautiful. When they finally step off the trailer, or when they finally start explore their first touches with an elephant, it's astounding, especially considering where they came from just a few days before.
Yeah, and we try to share a lot when they first get there as well. We'll do lives in the morning when we show up at the barn, and lives in the afternoon. Because of limited internet, again, there's a tiny range that we can actually do any sort of live feeds, because we don't have internet once you walk a certain distance away. But we do try to keep everybody really connected so they can also be part of watching first elephant touches as we're watching them. If we don't do a live, if we're not able, if it's too far or whatever, we always share videos. But, there's something nice about being able to have everyone experience it at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. Well, whenever anybody arrives, it's usually late in the afternoon or evening when they get there, and we leave them closed in the barn. The reason for this is, one, they have just been on a long trip, and the last thing you want to do is overstimulate them by letting them into a habitat that they don't know, can't see. There's so many new smells, so on and so forth. But two, we want them to sleep. It has been a long journey, and even for younger, healthy elephants, as anyone knows who has traveled for multiple days, on the road, it's tiring. So you want them to be able to sleep and rest. And part of it is about making smart choices. We all know, or at least I know, that when you're exhausted, judgment isn't necessarily great. And with meeting new elephants and everything that goes into that, you don't want that to start on a negative foot. You want them to be rested and thinking clearly and confidently. So first night, we leave them closed in the barn. We've never had anybody object to it. If an elephant really wanted to get out or seemed uncomfortable, of course, we can always open. But everybody seems pretty happy to just catch up on sleep and then discover
and feel the dirt under their feet. It's been a few days on the road, and some of them come from just concrete or no fresh dirt, and they feel that soft sand and the earth underneath their feet. It just grounds everybody.
One question that many of your supporters do ask, because I know that from your Facebook support group, Friends of Global Sanctuary for Elephants, is that can they smell other elephants? We answered that question in the previous podcast. Of course, everything smells of elephants in the barn where they are, so they can smell them. But what was it like when Ramba then first saw? Was it Hana or was it Maya? How was that interaction?
I don't remember.
Really?
I don't remember that first interaction, to be honest with you. I remember
it was really cute. Hana was waiting down by the 1-5 gate, and she knew something was up. And of course, there's a bunch of people. I mean, Scott, myself, Ramba's caregivers. Clearly, we're not open to the public. It's not like there's an actual bunch of people. But for us, we're used to 1 or 2 people. So add 3 and it's a whole bunch. We were down out by that corner, just at a distance. Again, you don't want to interfere. You don't want to, force her to go down or be the one encouraging. Everything should be on their own time, at their own pace. And that's a big part of true autonomy versus what people like to suggest autonomy is. So we're just over there and watching, and Hana came to the 1-5 gate, and she, of course, sees Ramba and is like, ooh, friend, ooh, new elephant. And Ramba's just grazing and not paying any attention to her. And she was not by itchy scratchy tree, but by the next tree in the shade, blah, blah, blah. And eventually she came walking over. And of course, Hana had waited the whole time for her. She's like, I will wait. And Ramba came down by the gate, and Hana was actually really good. She didn't try to reach out or like get grabby or invade her space. She let Ramba come over, and Ramba put her trunk up and sniffed a little bit and was really tentative and stood there for a couple of minutes at the gate, nobody touching anybody, just kind of looking at each other. And then she went back to grazing. And Hana was like, whoa, that was it.
But I'm Hana and I'm lovely. Don't you want to be my friend?
She is lovely. Yeah, it's cute. I mean, people, I don't know. People always come up with these scenarios in their head of how these introductions are going to go. And people often ask, who do you think their best friend's going to be when they get there? And we just don't put any of that on them. It is that, and again, people should know this from their own relationships, expectation can be heavy. You know, whether somebody necessarily voices it or not, when you feel somebody else's expectations, it carries a lot of weight to it. So we try to just be impressed and amazed by whatever it is that happens. And of course, elephants never fail. They are very much amazing. But it is that just letting it unfold however that's going to look and letting them be the ones that determine it. So, you know, I know some people like want this instant best friend thing, but however it happens, it happens.
Yeah, the instant best friend thing is interesting because, again, it's not reasonable considering all that they've been through.
But we get it. I mean, don't get us wrong. We get it. But we introduced the two owls, and I know caregivers were also like, they're not really doing anything with each other. It's like, no, did you expect them to be best friends right away? It's like, it's a new space for her. She's figuring things out. He came as a baby. He never spent time around other owls. It's like they both, it's like they need to figure stuff out. And it's the same thing with elephants. You know, sometimes, yes, they see another elephant and they're like all about it, but other times they can be about it in a more deep way, but not necessarily need that rom-com kind of moment of like running slow motion on the sand and jumping into each other's arms. You know, it's just, it's not usually what it looks like.
Although it is strange because guilty as charged, you know, at the beginning when I started, you know, when I got to know you and started following you and supporting you, I was like that as well. With my limited knowledge of elephants, I thought, well, this is a solitary elephant meets other solitary elephant and thinks, hey, great, you know, where have you been? But equally, it's strange that we do that because we ourselves know we don't meet people that we've never seen before, never met before, and are instantaneously friends. So it's weird that we wouldn't expect that of ourselves, but then we project that onto elephants. I mean, as I said, guilty as charged, not anymore to that degree, but I used to be like that as well. So, strange.
I mean, in a superficial way, it can happen, but again, going back to people, and I know there's got to be at least a couple of people that are like, you don't have to anthropomorphize everything. And that's always, for me, it's a sticking point because I think it's actually ridiculous to think that emotions that we feel are just human emotions and label any other being having them as anthropomorphic because, I mean, their brains, just look at science, they are more emotional than we are. So to think that they can't feel these things is silly.
And but for me, it's not just the feelings; it's putting the label on them. You know, this is what she's saying. This is what she's feeling. We know there's a lot of emotion, but what exactly is that emotion? And I think that's where it goes to fault sometimes. Is she is happy? She is this. She is that. Well, maybe it's not happy. Maybe it's another emotion. We know she seems really content. We know she seems very relaxed. We know she seems. But what's going on is hard to label sometimes, and I think people have to use a little bit of caution with that. But that human desire, the expectation, as you said, you know, we had this desire for them to get along, not we, but people have that for them to get along. And oh my God, I haven't seen an elephant in 40 years. Where have you been all my life? It's a desire. And that expectation that Kat said, we try not to put that on them. Humans have had an expectation on them for them to be entertained, people to be entertained by these elephants for 50 years. Let's remove that expectation. Yeah. And it's not about what we want anymore. It's not about what we desire anymore. It's about what they need. And we can't say what that is going to be.
And I mean, with human relationships, you know, those deepen over time. And it's the same thing here. You know, yes, Hana and Mara hit it off right away. Well, not initially. Hana was her noises were a little scary for Mara, I think. But, they clicked really quickly, but they didn't get to a depth of friendship that was really significant until much later. And it's the same with us. You go through experiences, you get to know somebody more, you learn to appreciate them more, the good, the bad, and that strengthens the relationship you have. So yes, superficially, sometimes you get elephants that do hit it off right away, sometimes not. But those really deep, meaningful friendships don't happen overnight.
And that's not to say we're not excited about that first contact. We're uber excited. We're overjoyed by it. We're the first touch or the first interaction or the first time they smell or see another elephant. I mean, of course, we're super thrilled and excited about that. Again, we're just, what do we think or what do we expect to happen? We try to curtail that. We try to hold that in a little bit.
And we are human. We're far from perfect. Sometimes you get these little, but we do realize the impact of our own actions and our own wishes and desires. And that's part of just trying to sit back and see how it unfolds with what they want to do. Which, when it came to Ramba and Rana, was stand really close to each other, but not touch each other.
Yeah, so that came next. That came after Ramba walked away and started grazing again. It's like, oh, hi, hey, you're an elephant, you're cute. Okay, I'm going to go eat.
Grass is pretty special when you haven't had it for 50 years of your life.
Yeah, and then because they were both so chill and because of Hana's nature and Ramba's nature, we sometimes, let me take a step back. A lot of times we wait till have the first contact with a divider between them. Where they interact along a common fence. But in this case, we weren't worried about that happening because both were very respectful.
You try to feel the situation out, see if one seems more dominant than the other, if everybody's being gentle, what does their face look like? What does their muscle tension look like? Just assessing essentially every inch of that picture to make sure that everything looks chill. And it seems like you can never say there's no worries, but it seems like it's good to open up between them, but with them, because of who they were, we just went ahead and opened up anyway.
We had talked about their initial get-together or their initial friendship or beginning of their friendship or encounter, I should say. Here am I choosing my words very carefully. Their initial encounter. When we talked about Rana and how she had changed with her neediness after Gita had died. And you just said that Rana and Ramba stood together with no touching because Rana was sort of uncertain, but then Ramba was waiting for, well, I'm new here, so, what are the rules in this place? And it was actually it was actually Maya who reached over with her trunk and tapped Ramba on the head. Is that a dominant behavior?
Maya doesn't have boundaries. That's a Maya behavior.
That's evolving. That's definitely evolving.
Yes, she's grown a lot in the last.
But at that stage in her life, with Gita having passed away not that long, her heart was still closed. She definitely had that dominant predisposition.
It wasn't aggressive. She didn't do it forcefully. It just really is that she has no boundary at that time. She just had, and she was great with people, but with elephants, it was, I'm going to go over here and not have anything to do with you for 3 weeks. But when I'm ready to interact, I'm going to interact with you. And it doesn't matter where you are, it's going to happen. So it was just her being like, oh, new elephant. Hey, I'm going to touch you. And stepped right up on the fence, reached over, touched her in the head. And Ramba was just like, okay.
Yeah, but even after that, it was Ramba's first touch with another elephant here, but that didn't affect Ramba and Rana touching each other.
Not right away. Still,
they still wouldn't touch each other. No, it wasn't about that because that was a different relationship. That's Maya Rana. That's Maya Ramba. That's not Ramba Rana. Ramba and Rana still had their thing a little bit of, we're not really sure how to make this happen, and Rana was still saying, I don't want to screw it up. She was
they would be like a half inch away from touching each other. They were standing so close, and yet they just wouldn't commit to actually touching each other. Cheeky smiles, seemingly happy, soft, having a great time, but just not touching each other. It's like, okay, whatever makes you happy.
But it went from that to two elephants who were seemingly inseparable. with the exception of Hana couldn't keep up.
Her fused elbow. Okay.
Once, with there was.
Ramba was so all over the place and so speedy.
And not quite Gishimina fast, but she's fast.
She was. And poor Hana was like, I am old. She's like, I know you're old, but I am old. They were just very cute. And you could see at points, Hana was just like, oh, goodness. It's like, you don't have to go everywhere with her. She's like, nope, I'm going to try. Here I go. It's like, okay, see you later. Bye.
And she would arrive at point X quite a bit later when Ramba's now ready to leave point X, whenever that location was. But it went from not touching to a beautiful friendship of them both searching each other out, seeking each other out. And even when Ramba would go off and Hana couldn't keep up, Ramba would come back and they would reconnect. And it was just really, really beautiful, this friendship that emerged. And Hana got a little bit possessive, a little protective, I shouldn't say possessive, a little bit more protective. And I remember Kat taking video of Ramba laying in the pond and Hana trying to climb over top of her to protect her, like a mother would over her young calf in the water. And it's like, Ramba, your leg doesn't work well enough for that. And she is doing everything she can to protect Hana while she's laying in the pond, Ramba, while she's protecting her in the pond. Just protecting her from the sun.
I ended up editing the video because at points I'm like, please don't drown your friend. I'm like, what are you doing? And she was good and she was fine. And Ramba was fine with it. She clearly isn't going to drown her friend. I mean, her trunk can stay up above water, even if she's kind of pushing her belly down so she can squeeze her legs over her so she can stand over her. But yeah, they were great. It was very, very charming the way they were with each other. Although there was the one time that Hana called for Ramba. She didn't know where she was, and she called for her. And Ramba didn't answer, so not in the habitat, but along the fence, went along to see where Ramba was. And she wasn't that far. She was grazing. I'm like, I know you hear her. I'm like, are you ignoring your friend? And she's like, I'm grazing. I'll be there in a minute.
I'm busy. Busy elephant. But we've never had a transition that was so quick from arrival to fully embedded in sanctuary life. Again, attributed in part because of that transition time she had at the safari park, maybe. Yeah. The comfort she had with us, because we did have a relationship with her. The comfort with, somewhat of an autonomous relationship that she had with humans, because her caregivers that had been with her for a while, they listened to her, so many when they come here, they haven't had that yet. So they're learning what it means to be heard and what it means to have a voice. And Ramba had that,
and learning that they can actually, not in words, but ask for things. It's so foreign, and that whole trust issue is really significant in the beginning. And she got to fast pace that.
Yeah, it was just amazing to watch how she just was fully immersed into sanctuary life, walking, exploring everywhere, scratching on every tree, scratching to a fault actually.
Yeah.
She would actually scratch herself to make her, and scratch so much that her skin got raw, which made her more itchy, which caused her to scratch more. So we're doing a lot of herbal baths to try to help her skin adjust to sanctuary life.
She is very cute. She definitely put in her miles very quickly, for sure. She went everywhere.
Yeah.
And pretty much right away. There's just no hesitation with her.
Up and down every hill, through the creek, across the creek. I mean, she just went everywhere.
We used to joke because people would be like, do you have video of this or do you have video of this? And it's like, it is so hard to get video of her. She doesn't stop moving. It's like, and we can't, like normally if you are trying to get certain video, you can put hey down and then get yourself positioned somewhere and take video. By the time you get yourself positioned anywhere, she's already moving again. It's like, okay, never mind.
No, I can imagine she and Gujamina. I mean, if you had both of them, they both the same sort of personality that way. And for a 50-plus-year-old elephant, Ramba was...
She was over 60.
She moved. I mean, she had incredible agility for her age.
Yeah. She was petite. Sometimes that helps. She was a little cute nugget.
Did she come back to the Did she come back to the barn often then? Or did
Yeah,
you...
and then she'd leave again, and then she'd go in the habitat, and she'd come back to the barn, and she'd leave again, and she'd come back to the barn. She was everywhere, Nadia. That girl didn't stop. I mean, we're not, this isn't she explored for 2 days. This was 2.5 months of nonstop exploration.
Going from one side of a habitat to the other multiple times a day. She was everywhere.
And then back to the barn again, and then back with Hannah, then to say, hey, Hannah, I'm going again. And Hannah's like, oh my God, really? Can we just rest in the pond again? Don't you need a nap?
They told me you were over 60. They must be lying.
But when you talk about celebration of life at Sanctuary, again, we haven't had anything that compared to that. I mean, we see these transitions over time that are astounding and without description many times. But when we step back and remember what it was like for Ramba, it was just magical for those 2.5 months. I mean, she lived every second of that to the fullest.
And it was definitely one of those things, looking back, you're like, there's always this thing where they seem to, they definitely know more than we know. There is a connectedness they have that people generally don't have. A lot of us have lost in life with the pace of life and being disconnected from so much. But there's always this feeling that there's an understanding and a knowledge that they have that we can't touch. And it is that, hindsight of, we've seen it with other elephants, that they seem to, and it's always hindsight where you realize what was happening, when it was happening, that you couldn't understand. And there's another elephant, Barbie, that has a very specific story, but I won't get lost. It is that looking back and wondering if she knew she wasn't long for the world and she just wanted to experience as much of Sanctuary as she possibly could while she could.
Yeah, going back to those conversations before, should she travel? Should she make the journey? Can she make the journey? Are we making the right decision? There was absolutely no question. Absolutely no question. When you saw that celebration of Sanctuary life, was without any hesitation, it was completely the right thing to do for her. She was a different animal. She was a different being. She was a different Ramba. Even though she had love and nurturing and respect in the safari park, what her explosion of self here was just astounding to watch. How much she emerged in a short time. It wasn't long enough.
It's never long enough. Even when it's years, it's never long enough. I mean, we do say, even 24 hours here. I think we've mentioned Palooza and her passing away before she was ever able to get here. But the conversation we had with the vet team of, she could die during transport. She was very not well. And the feeling of, even if she just has 24 hours, even if she doesn't meet another elephant, even if she could just smell them and know she's not alone anymore, as we talk about just the vibration of Sanctuary and nature and reconnecting with all of that, even if it's for 24 hours, that it's worth it. And it is, for everyone we've seen it with that doesn't get a very long time at Sanctuary, it's still very much worth it. But even those who are with us for 10 years, not here, clearly. Tennessee.
Too short.
But it still always feels like they just needed a little longer.
So I guess it goes without saying that we're talking about Rama passing away. For those that don't know that whole story, it was about 2.5 months after her arrival. Lady had arrived in that time. Lady was here just for, I think, a couple of weeks, a very short period of time before Ramba passed away. And she passed away, I think it was on the 26th, just after Christmas.
Yep.
If I recall. And I recall with Ramba a couple weeks earlier, she just looked at me differently. And there's a time that sometimes it just feels like they want to try to say something to you and we don't fully understand. And I remember a feeling of her, the only thing I said in response is, please, not yet. I'm not ready to say goodbye, because it really felt like she was drained. But then she'd go off and explore again, but it felt like there was something more there. And then it was about 48 hours before she actually passed away, she gave me that same look again, and all I said is, I know. And she passed away 2 days later. And it was one of those times. There's many times that in the morning you go to feed the elephants, go to check on everybody, and somebody's not there. no big deal. That's normal. And it happened just the other day with Maya again, and no big deal. Not, but this morning felt different. And I called Kat and told her, I can't find Ramba yet. And Kat came down. Because again, Kat had that feeling of this is not the normal, can't find an elephant. We actually celebrate when we can't find elephants. This is fabulous that you have an elephant lost in their space. It's brilliant, and we have Tina here right now, a caregiver has quite a few years of experience working with elephants in zoos and in Asia. And she said it's one of the most joyful moments for her is when you can't find an elephant, that they just have that space that they're lost in. And it's just brilliant. It's just so perfect. But again, this felt different, and Kat came down to see if she can put eyes on Ramba and see where she is. And she ended up finding her at the back of field 5, along the divider in between field 4 and 5. And as Kat had described it then, and we have photos to show also, it looked like she just laid down. It looked like there's
sleep.
No struggle, there's no strain, there's no anything else. It looked like she just simply lay down and went to sleep. It just seems that almost perfect. And, we couldn't really ask for any more than that type of passing.
Yeah, it's weird, but I think most people that have had pets, we often do that, what ends up being most of the time unrealistic wish of, I hope they just go in their sleep. I think people think that about people as well, but found her laying in the fields, went over to check. I mean, already, again, the day had the feeling like she had already passed. So went over to check, and there was not a blade of grass disturbed around her. You can see if they try to get up, the grass is pushed down, the dirt's moved.
Yeah.
There's a lot of signs.
Even with their trunk, even when they lay down on any given night, you see disturbance where they have been dreaming or wiggling or
and
dusting.
There was nothing. There was just beautiful grass surrounding every inch of her body and this smile on her face. And it was like, okay.
I think if there is a perfect way to die, that does sound like a very perfect way, just falling asleep and doing what you love doing right up to the minute when you fell asleep. So, yeah, not long enough, 2.5 months, but as you said, it was worth every hour of sleepless nights that you put into rescuing her and the entire team. And yeah, a sad note to end on, but equally a happy note as well, because you gave her and all your supporters and everyone gave her what she deserved, her space, her autonomy.
And for an elephant who was given a year to live, who managed to live 7 years, we all felt like she was not leaving this planet until she got here. So,
you said sad note, and absolutely, but when we step back and think about it, could we really ask for much more for her? What a gift. What a gift for us. What a gift.
Yeah.
To come here, to have that friendship she had with Rana, to be able to explore on her terms, to be able to experience that life, to be able to graze where she wants to graze, to be able to do all those things, and to be able to pass so peacefully. Really, could we? It doesn't get much better. Yes, more time would be brilliant, but it really doesn't get much better than this perfect end to a long journey, but also ultimately a beautiful journey for her.
I said a sad note, but also, a happy note, because you made it all possible for her. You and the team before who started working on her rescue, and made it all possible for her to be there, to have respect, have autonomy, to be able to zoom in and out of the yard and zoom to the barn and back and just discover the whole sanctuary, and also form friendships. So, and that is what your work is about. That is, as we say in the introductory of the podcast, you are there to create vast safe spaces for captive elephants where they are able to heal physically and emotionally. And that is what you offered Ramba. And even if it was only for 2.5 months, well, a bit corny, but as the song goes, better to have lost in love than never to have loved at all. And I think that should give all your supporters who, might be shedding a bit of a tear, something to feel good about. To know that she was where she had to be, and she was there, and she didn't die alone. So, yes, there's a lot to celebrate and be grateful and happy for.
There's a lot to celebrate with that. There's a lot to be grateful for. And you said a couple of times in this, Nadia, and I think it is possibly a good conclusion here. You said the life that we created and all of our supporters created, and I think it is imperative for those supporters to get that credit. None of this happens without help. Talked about it with Ramba's rescue, all the people, the entities, the authorities, the people that were all there for, and no one fighting for their own personal need. It's all about what Ramba needed. And, we're all so very grateful for everybody that participated and gave her that chance to have this beautiful ending.
Well, I'll leave you, and I won't say no. I won't say I'm sad, and I hope that our listeners aren't sad, because you will now go out and look after all your other elephants and the wildlife, and that is what you are here to do, and that's why this podcast is here, to support you and to spread the word of the magic of sanctuary to everybody around the world, so that we do care more for our elephants. I'll let you go and say thank you. And have a lovely rest of your day, and then we'll catch up for our next recording.
Thank you, Nadia. It's always a pleasure to shed a few tears with you.
Thank you, Nadia.
Okay, so that's all that we have time for this week, and we hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'm sure you are a little bit sad, but also that you are happy and grateful, like all of us, that Ramba did make it to Sanctuary. So don't forget to subscribe so that we meet up again in 2 weeks' time. And until then, take care and thank you.